This is the first time we've recorded a podcast not having somebody on Zoom, not staring at my computer. This is kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
So I am excited about this. We talked about setting this up probably 8 weeks ago.
Yes.
And this is not optometry related, right?
No.
No eye nerd stuff. But I'm really excited because I knew your dad. He was one of my general contractors, helped remodel my office and then my house that we're in. And then we met, and you do a lot of really cool stuff.
Thank you.
So Taylor, introduce yourself, and then let's dive into what we're going to chat about today.
Perfect. I'm Taylor. I'm a PADI scuba diver instructor. So I instruct all the way from open water through advanced rescue courses, all the way to divemaster. And yeah,
Nice.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Love it.
And you're only 21.
21. Yeah,
So
22 in March.
So a lot of responsibility, a lot of
Oh, yeah.
of education.
Yes.
And your dad likes to say you try to kill yourself all the time, which
He's had some serious conversations with me where I've told him something I want to do, and he'll sit down and he'll be like, please don't make me bury my daughter before I go. And I'm like, but look what I could do.
Yeah. So you love the risks, right?
I love it.
Cool.
Love it.
And when we talked about the scuba diving, one, it's super cool. And two, it made me think that, so you as a young individual, young leader, right? And I was young at one point in time, so I remember trying to, get respect. But I'm thinking, so as a scuba diver and as an instructor, you're taking individuals who are probably older than you.
Yes.
And you do some education on land where you can talk to each other, but then you go underwater
Yes.
where you can't talk.
Yes.
There's no microphones like in the movies, right?
Correct.
You're not talking to each other, right?
Only for tech diving, but that's different.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've got really good hand signals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you can write on some tablets, but that's probably not always efficient.
Correct.
And you're down there with novices.
Yes.
Because you're teaching them what to do. And you own all the responsibility.
Yes.
Right. And I thought that was really interesting. We'll dive into it in a minute because in my world, in optometry world, we bring on new staff. Typically, we wait until there's a need to have another person there and bring them on. So we don't have the luxury of training them 6 months ahead of time before they have to start working with patients and help out. It's a fire drill. Oh my gosh, we need somebody quit or moved or whatever. So I need you now, and I need you working with patients now. And so I got to throw them into the fire. And communication is probably the number one challenge that we face to get them up. But I've got the luxury of at least pulling them aside and talking.
Yeah.
You don't even have that luxury.
No.
So walk me through. I don't have my scuba cert yet. I would love to get it. But walk me through. I mean, do you get to pick like the people you're going underwater with? How does that work?
Necessarily, no, you don't. So I do private courses by myself. I'm an independent contractor,
Okay.
and I also work through underwaters. So he'll send me people, and then I'll go pick my own people. But if he sends me a student, I have to certify them regardless. Obviously, if they don't pass the certs
Right.
or they don't pass the skills, then they don't get certified. However, I don't have the luxury of picking them. But we start at a pool session.
Okay.
And so for our private sessions, it takes maybe about 3 to 4 hours for the pool session. We'll do a quick review, make sure they understand all the basics, and then we'll get them in the pool. We'll go over some of the hand signals and some of the skill signals. So I have different signals for all my skills. So if I want him to share air, I'll tell him to share air. Or if he's out of air and I want him to share air, I'll say, you're going to be out of air, and then you're going to share air.
Okay.
So I have different signals for everything I do, and then I'll tell them ahead of time. The luxury in the pool is that if they don't understand, I tell them the universal sign for I don't know is this. And then we'll go ahead and go up because it's usually less than 10 feet
Okay.
in the pool. And so we can easily go up. But in the ocean, that's not always the case, especially once we hit the canyon.
Oh, I'm sure. So the hand signals, you said are they universal across the board?
Most are universal,
Okay.
yeah. So we have a few, this is a question and an answer. So are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. This is going to be an ascent, a 5-point ascent, descent, 5-point ascent. We have something's wrong, and then you point to whatever's wrong. You can't equalize your ears is a big thing right now with some of my students. And then, of course, I have my skill ones that I do. And so those necessarily aren't super universal for CISA. is pretty universal because everyone just does a big C. It's like, this is CISA, or some people will go like, this is CISA, like this.
Okay.
But it's pretty universal for those ones too.
Got it. But before, so even on your advanced courses, before you go down,
Mm-hmm.
do you always go through a quick review signal session so that everybody knows what hand signals you're doing and what they mean?
Absolutely, especially because I do a lot of military students through, since we're in San Diego, I do a lot of military students, and they actually will show air differently. So we usually do, because it's black gloves on black wetsuit, we'll do like over the arm, so we'll go 1,200, but for military, they like to go like 1,700.
Okay.
So I know all the skills. I just have to make sure that I'm like, okay, which ones do you want to do? And then we'll stick with whatever you want to do.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense to spend time just at the beginning to make sure that everybody's not only on the same page, but on the same language.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because once you get in the open water, and going up from a pool 10 feet is probably pretty simple.
Yes.
And what depths are you typically working at when you're out in the ocean?
We're usually working at about 15 to 20 feet, or 15 to 18 feet with our newer students. Once we get to our last dive, I have the luxury of taking them down to 60 feet if they like. That's going to be their depth for open water is going to be 60 feet.
Okay.
When we're working with advanced open water students, we do take them down to 100 feet to do their deep dive, but they are allowed to go to 130 feet.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How long does it take to go down to 60 feet?
You're supposed to descend at a pretty slow rate, like 18 meters per minute. And so we take our time. It depends on how we're getting down. So if we're going to use a sloping bottom at La Jolla Shores, or if we're going out on a boat, the boat's going to take obviously less time. The sloping bottom's going to take a little more because we're not going down in a straight line.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, but it takes a while to get down, and then obviously it'll take a while to get back up.
Yeah, we have to do our safety stop.
And so if there is an emergency, you can't just stop and talk.
Correct. Yes. If there's an emergency, that's where my my rescue diving comes into training, where I'm always watching the person that I'm with and looking for key details. Even if they start swimming a little slower, that's a key detail as well. They could be tired. They could be scared to descend more. Every little bit of like information that you can get from a person, how they're acting, could show you how they're going to react in a few seconds.
That's interesting. We hadn't pre-talked about that, but so all the nonverbal cues, so it's not just active communication, but you're watching their behaviors to try to get a sense of what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so you can tell when a person's just a little off. You can even feel the energy a little bit sometimes, even when you're underwater, because it's just you, them, and the ocean. So if you can usually feel their energy, you can usually tell a little bit of signs, especially if you worked with them beforehand. You kind of know how they work. So if something's off, that's also a key detail for a possible distressed diver.
Nice. So if somebody's coming to you for an advanced certification, do you always start in the pool? Do you always start at a significantly easier dive, if you will, so you start learning the person, or do you dump straight into the advanced stuff?
No, we do progress through. So for the open water, we're in the pool first. For the advanced, they just do 5 dives. So they have their underwater navigation dive, and then they can like choose a few different dives. So they can do their PPB, which is a good one that we recommend. It's the peak performance buoyancy. Then they also have to do their deep dive. And then I always recommend, because it's fun, their night dive and a boat dive. Oh, cool. Those are my favorite. But we usually start underwater with like the navigation, or if they choose to do the PPB,
What's the PPP?
Peak performance buoyancy. Okay. So we just work on getting them like neutrally buoyant and all their gear streamlined, and it'll make it so you're not harming aquatic life. It'll make it easier to kick, and then it'll also increase the time that you have with your air, because you're not like fighting so much to like stay neutrally buoyant.
Very cool. I'm assuming as an instructor, going through that entire process with them, you start learning a lot about them.
Yes.
And what's important to them. And so even without asking, hey, what's important to you, or what are your quirks, right? You can pick up on that pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, and that allows you, I'm assuming, to adjust and tailor the experience. One, because you're not a nonprofit, you're there to make money.
Yes.
And so you want them to have a good experience. That way they refer their friends, or they come back for more advanced certifications. It's a better experience for everybody when they're happy. So well, that's neat. And I'm thinking of parallels in our world where we've got different interactions when a patient comes in to interact with them, talk with them, get a feel for them, even asking medical history, seeing how they respond, how detailed they respond to us, how detailed I need to be back with them. But that's super neat. Now, don't give names, but how do you handle those really challenging situations? So you have a student that comes in that's incredibly demanding, or they have their way of doing things that doesn't follow with your way. How do you address those?
So there's one thing we definitely say in scuba diving a lot. It's styles versus standards. So we have our standards that we have to follow and that every student has to perform, but the style is different. And necessarily if they're difficult and they can't perform a certain skill a way that I would like, we can kind of tweak with them and like work a little bit. An easy one is if they have contacts, they can close their eyes during our remove and replace or clearing mask skills. Okay. And then I will tell them, I will squeeze your arm when you're ready to put it on. Got it. So that's a small one. We had a guy in our IDC, so our instructor development course. Okay. And one of the skills is to clear your mask. And so you pinch at the top, you fill your mask, and then you're supposed to put 2 fingers up, pressure, while you're blowing out your nose and looking up to the sky, and it'll lift your mask right here and blow out all the air or all the water. Yep. And instead, he just went and cleared. He just sucked all the water through his nose and cleared it out his mouth. So styles versus standards. But yeah.
I've got a visual now of him, inhaling water through his nose and spitting it out, but I guess whatever works.
Yeah.
But I like that, styles versus standards. Yeah. And I think that's important too from an experience standpoint, because if you're rigid, again, I'm thinking back to our world, if you're rigid, you're going to make some people happy, but you're not going to make everybody happy.
Absolutely.
And you're not, I don't like the word accommodating, but you're not allowing their personality to shine through.
Yeah.
And you're not allowing your personality to shine through.
Absolutely. No, I'm constantly looking, because when I go out to dive in the mornings during the weekend, you get there at 6 a.m., parking lots are already full. There's instructors everywhere on the grass. There's students coming up, which is amazing. And I'm always watching each instructor because I'm always learning. Yep. They could do something that I like, and I'm like, oh, I really like that. Like, I'm going to incorporate that now. So I love learning about other instructors and how they teach courses. And
nice. I like that. How to do things better.
Yes.
My dad taught me a long time ago, there's a phrase that we hear often, and it's treat others how you want to be treated. And he told me that that's probably one of the worst phrases ever, because I like things Aaron's way, but you like things Taylor's way. Yeah. Right?
I've never thought about that. I like that.
If I give it to you my way, you may or may not like it.
Yeah.
I like my steaks rare. You may not.
Yeah.
And
a vegetarian.
Oh, then you definitely
or
don't like your steaks rare.
Pescatarian, no, yeah.
So, and so being able to understand what that person needs and wants and what they are. So styles and say that again.
Styles and standards.
Styles and standards. I'm going to steal that.
Go for it.
I like that.
It's a good one.
Because it allows the personality to show through. It allows you to be you, but you're not minimizing the quality. Exactly.
You do everything legally in the other person's way, however you'd like to.
I like that. And you learn a lot from that too. I'm sure you've learned a ton from.
Oh yeah. It's made me a stronger diver for sure, working with difficult students. Sometimes it's hard to get out into the ocean because we do shore dives. And so sometimes the waves are a little big and I'm like, hey, we're going to go out anyways because I feel like it's safe and I feel like you could do it. And I will just stand back here and get slammed by waves until you get cleared and then I'll go. And then so yeah, but it's part of the fun. I like getting slammed by waves.
You would, yeah.
I do. I'm like, this is half the fun, trying to get out. Yeah.
Oh, that is fun. Did you go out in the big surf we just had recently?
No, but I went out on the one before that. Okay. Actually. I lost the mask, but I got a new one.
Well, there you go.
But it was my favorite one. I zip tied both sides because they broke, and I love that mask so much. I was like, I'm not getting a new one. I will just zip tie it until I can't use it anymore. And then I lost it.
You lost it.
I did.
Yeah, we've had some good gnarly surf. For those who don't know, the last couple storms San Diego's had, piers have been destroyed and pylons have been removed, and the waves are going over. It was
people are surfing
pretty
cool
to see. Yeah, people were surfing in places that usually look like lakes. So it was.
I almost died in the cave, actually.
Yeah, Hopefully your dad knows about it. He's not hearing about that now.
He does. He does. My mom. I called my mom right after too, and I said, I almost just died. She was like, "Why are you telling me this?"
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So what? How do you handle stress? So I'm thinking now. You've got the communication ahead of time, and in my world, everything goes smooth until it doesn't, and then it's just chaos, right? And you can't train necessarily for chaos. You can kind of train for it, but it's different when it really happens.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking now you're down, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet with someone, you're trained and you're comfortable with them. And then something goes wrong that's unexpected you hadn't trained for. As an instructor who's responsible for your life, for their life, and then everything else, how do you walk through that situation mentally?
The first thing you want to do is make sure they have a good air supply.
Okay.
So everything is going to fail open. So if the regulator fails, it's going to fail open. So they're going to be able to breathe. It's just going to be an open airflow, which is fine. And we train for that in the pool.
Okay. So open airflow means that the air is just constantly pumping towards you? What does that mean?
Yeah. So our regulators are demand valves. So
Okay.
when you breathe in, it'll give you air. When you breathe out, it'll exhale the air. And if you stop breathing, it won't give you air.
Got it.
Yeah. So if the demand valve fails, it's going to fail open and it's just going to go and just keep purging air.
At you. Okay.
Yeah. So we train to do that. So that's a big thing I look for first is, okay, are you breathing? Like, do you have your regulator in your mouth? And then of course, if you're not okay to help them, then you can't help them. So I make sure that I'm good. So make sure my reg's in my mouth, make sure if say they start freaking out and they start shooting to the surface, I want to make sure that all my air's out. Because if all my air's out, then I could grab them and I could pull them down enough to let their air out. Mm-hmm. But if I'm inflated and they are inflated, then we're both going to go to the surface.
So when you say your air out, you're talking about your vest, your buoyancy vest, right?
Yes, my BCD device.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to turn yourself into a weight.
Yes.
To pull them down.
Oh yeah, I overweight myself on purpose. I have 5 extra pounds on me every time I dive for that situation.
So you're already thinking ahead of time.
Yes.
What's going to go wrong?
Absolutely.
No different than in our office. We're thinking, hey, what happens if something bad happens? I've got the first aid kit. I've got the AEDs. I've got the necessary equipment.
Oh yeah.
I know which hospitals to call. I know what phone numbers to deal with if I need to. Mm-hmm. So you're prepared ahead of time. I love what you said about breathing.
Yeah.
Because I think even above water, right, when things go crazy, we stop breathing.
Yes.
Right? You panic, and so the first thing you need is air.
Yes.
So remembering to breathe, and then taking care of yourself first, because you can't help others if you're not good.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
And how then? So somebody is shooting up. They're panicking for whatever reason. You're breathing. You've checked yourself. You grab them. You're pulling them down. How do you then communicate to them whatever you need to without words? Mm-hmm. But how do you get them back into a state where they can function?
So I would grab their BCD and I would have them facing me, and then I would make sure they're looking at me, and I would just tell them you're fine, just breathe. This is my sign for breathe. So all my students, I'm breathe. So I would tell them to just breathe, calm down, breathe. And then once they're fine and they understand that I'm holding on to them, I'm there, I'm fine because I'm breathing. I'm telling you to breathe. They normally call down, and then I can be like, "Okay, what's wrong? Are you okay?" They'd be like, "Oh, no, I had a cramp in my foot." I'd be like, "Okay, let's address that. Let me get the cramp." Or "No, I want to go up." I'm like, "Okay, let's go up, but we're going to ascend in a safe manner." Yep. Yeah.
So you make sure you're breathing.
Yes.
Then you make sure you're okay.
Yes.
And then it sounds like you then assert yourself as in control of the situation.
Yes.
Making sure they know, but not in a. I imagine it might be physically violent if somebody's really going crazy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Panicking, but you just make sure that you communicate. In your case, by grabbing them. Mm-hmm. We typically don't grab too many people in the office, right? But that I've got control of the situation.
Yes.
Right. We're fine. I'm going to de-escalate the anxiety, and if you're not excited, it allows them to come down a little bit. Yeah. Okay. And then again, you make them breathe. The first thing you said was once you grab them, you make sure they're breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so. You want to just calm them down, let them know you're there. Usually they're freaking out because they don't know what's happening, but as soon as I have my hand on someone, they usually calm down, even if they're just doing a basic skill, like if they're doing a mask skill or a regulator skill, because it has something to do with your airway. I'm always holding on to my student, and I'll tell them, be like, I'm going to grab you when you're doing these skills. And that's just because I want to be there, because I've had to put regulators back in people's mouths because they can't find it. And then I'm just like, okay, you need yours, or you need my second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you let them know before you go down that, hey, like, I'm hands-on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you have to be.
And I'm sure they kind of look at you and say, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But giving them that ahead of time and then taking control of it. No, I like that. So once you deal with the situation, I'm sure a lot of those involve, hey, let's go up and talk about it, especially with a newer student. How do you then, and once you get up, you can talk, you can walk through it. How do you help them get back on the horse? Because I imagine if they panicked about something down, going back down is scary.
Yeah, so you want to get them in the water as soon as possible. If something happens, and that's what we tell all of our instructors, all of our dive masters who take people on tours. You want to get in the water as soon as possible again. Because if you don't, then you're going to have that fear, you're not going to be able to conquer it, and you probably won't be diving again, if not for a very, very long time. So you want to get in as soon as possible. So I'm going to say, okay, what went wrong? And then they could tell me, and then I could address it. If it was just like, oh, it was deep, it scared me, I'm like, cool, let's take it slow. Like, we'll get down to like 40 feet. We'll chill out for a little bit. We'll swim around if we need to. We'll drop down a little bit, 10 more feet, swim around if we need to. And then obviously I'll tell them, like, I'll be here the whole time.
Yep.
I'm trained. I can do anything. If anything happens, like, that's what I'm here for. So sometimes they just need that reassurance again. And, yeah.
But it's important to get, you said, back in the water as soon as you can.
As soon as possible. Even if something like traumatic happens, you want to get back in as soon as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you can address it and it doesn't.
Exactly.
That fear doesn't fester and grow and turn
Yeah. Like, I got pummeled by a wave once when I was surfing, and I was like 10, and I got scared because it was a big one at the.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, and I swam down, or swam up to the surface. I thought I hit the bottom, and I was like, ah! So I didn't surf for like 2 years, and it took me forever to get back in. But
yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who surfs can. Just,
oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab air and then grab sand.
Yep. It's a lovely feeling.
It's a horrible feeling. It's scary. Very cool. How do you? I think that makes sense. And again, relating it back to our world, if I've got a rough situation, maybe I had a staff member who had a rough situation and a negative interaction.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really easy to say, I'm done with this. I quit. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Pulling them aside, helping them breathe, calm down, and then saying, hey, I need you to do it again.
Yeah.
Right. And getting back on the horse just to build that self-confidence. How do you handle when things just aren't going well for you? Because not every day is going to be rainbows and unicorns for you, right? But you still have to show and portray confidence, portray that calmness. So when everything inside of you is just going nuts, how do you handle that with students?
It actually happens quite often that something's not going right. Sometimes my trim will be off, my weights will shift. Happens all the time, and so I'll just adjust myself if I have to. If not, I'm trained to be able to show that my trim's good, and it's not. So there's been other times where I've done a night dive with a minor, and the parents standing right on the beach, so they're like waiting for us, and we drop down, and as soon as we drop down, there's like 6 sharks, and they're just horn sharks, so they're nice.
What kind?
Horn sharks.
Horn sharks.
Yeah, so they're one of our native sharks at La Jolla.
I didn't know we had horn sharks.
Yeah, and so they're nice and everything, but
a nice shark,
at night they don't like the lights, and so we went down and we had lights because it was night dive, and they were chasing our lights, and I was like, oh look, this is fun, chasing the lights, and of course I was like, there's a lot of sharks, so I'm like watching my student, and he like. One of the sharks comes up towards us, and I'm just like, cool, let me like put my fin in between us, and then the shark goes towards him, and I'm like, his dad's literally right on the shore. Like, if something happens to him, he's gonna see it all. Yep. Oh yeah. So that was a little stressful for me, but obviously I just like got us away from it. I cupped our lights so the sharks didn't try to get the lights, and then I grabbed him, we moved a little bit away, and then I cupped my lights. So
nice. So I'm picturing that kind of like the little laser pointer with a cat or a dog where they're chasing
it's basically
it.
how it is. They don't like the light, so whenever I see one, I'm just like, hey, look it real quick. Okay, let's move on. Like, let's let them sleep, or I guess hunt. They hunt at night, so.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. So speaking of sharks, since you brought it up, right? When you go out, you're not constantly getting attacked by sharks.
No.
Yeah. We've got a lot of fun ones off. I've seen the juvenile great whites.
Oh yeah, I've never seen a great white, but I believe it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. There was like a big influx of the warm water from that storm that came in. One of my friends saw a triggerfish, which is not native, and then I got stalked by a tiger shark up north.
Ooh.
And those are top 3
dangerous. That would be scary.
And I was like, this is a solo dive. This is about 5 feet. You're staring at me.
Oh, tiger shark in 5 feet?
Yeah. 5 feet viz.
Okay. Oh, 5 feet visibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be scary.
Oh, yeah. And everyone's like, it wasn't a tiger shark. Are you sure it was a great white? I'm like, I would know a great white if I saw a great white. Yeah,
well, I haven't seen a great white in the water. I have flown over helicopters, and you can see them.
Oh, yeah.
Right off just outside the surf zone near the surfers. And they're not going to mess with you.
No.
But it is cool in the cove seeing the leopard sharks.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
And they're not they don't have mouths big enough to bite you, right?
I know.
At least that's what I've been told, and I believe it, so I'm comfortable with them.
They're super sweet too. I mean, I've swam probably this close to a bunch of them, but I'm on the surface, of course, and there's just like 10 below me just swimming around. And
that's cool.
Beautiful. Leopards are my favorite.
Nice. Leopard, yeah. The only thing I don't like out there are the seals, just because they bark at you.
They're playful, for sure. They'll come check you out.
That's funny. When I used to race Ironmans, I'd swim through there, and the seals would jump up and start barking, and that always scared me.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially when it's like you and there's not a lot of people around you. And
yep. So let's get back to your training, because I'm fascinated by this and the parallels. A good friend of mine, Tom Mai, is a doctor up in Orange County, and his famous line is like, tells me all the time, Aaron, we just got to steal more stuff from other people, like from other industries. And so I'm nerding out on this. You're 22.
Yes.
You're young. Yes. You're one of those damn Gen Zs that like people write books about and we complain about.
I was the one before that.
So millennial, or whatever age group, you're working with individuals from all sorts of different backgrounds.
Yes.
We can call them different generations. We can call them different backgrounds.
Yes.
How do you, as a young leader, as a young professional, let's say work with somebody who's significantly older than you, not a whole lot, significantly younger than you, but how do you adjust anything when you're working with different age?
Absolutely. I was actually the youngest in my IDC, so I worked, or my IDC and my IE, and I worked with an elder, and he was, I believe, in his 50s, and he, it was just cool working with someone else of that age group and seeing like what they brought into it and everything like that. So that helped me a lot working with people now. I actually have this student who she should be finishing her e-learning soon, and then we'll get into the ocean, but she actually was a little wary of my age. And my boss told her, like, hey, like, you're fine, trust me. Like, she's okay. Once you meet her, you'll be fine. But of course, some people are a little wary of how young I am, but I've been teaching like my whole life through things, so I love it, and that's what I tell them. I say I love doing this. Like, I'll cater to you as much as I can, and we'll get through it. So
yep. No, I remember that coming out of optometry school, and same thing. It was young, and then you get somebody who's older, and what does this young kid know anything about?
Exactly. She was like, she's 21. I don't think I'm gonna do it, and I was like, well, you get that choice. You don't have to, but I'm telling you, like, it's fine. I promise you.
Yep. Cool. Do you find when you're communicating with them ahead of time out of the water that there's just lots of different communication styles? That you have to reassure people differently, or are you just you and help them, understand who you are?
A little bit of both. So I've worked with some people from different ethnicities as well, and like out of country ethnicities, and they have different language barriers, of course. So we really have to work on, like, I'll be myself, and I'll tell them, hey, this is how I do things. Now, what would you like to bring into this? What would help you best? Of course, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but there's a ton of cultural differences, and that come into play. Are the hand signals different if people get certified in different countries, or is it pretty universal worldwide?
It's pretty universal. There's a few different like emergency equipment that's different. So there's our oxygen tank. So emergency oxygen tank is going to be labeled green,
Okay.
except in Europe it's white. So there's a few little like tweaks like that that you just want them to be aware of. Like, hey, if something does happen, we always want to tell them where our emergency equipment is. Like the lifeguards are right there. They have O2 tanks. They have AEDs. But there's stuff like that, and then of course I just make sure that their gear's the same as mine, or they're used to that sort of gear. We have a bunch of different gears coming out, so that could be a barrier between age and then countries, as well as the different types of gear.
Got it. But a lot of it is just all addressed on the front end.
Yes, yeah,
So
definitely before we go out.
Before you go out, you sit, you spend. And how much time do you do that? Is it a real quick, like 5-minute touch up, or do you guys plan for a good half hour just to make sure everybody's on board?
For tours, I usually do like 30 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes or less, and we just go over some of the basics because they're already certified. I'm just showing them around.
Yep.
For like our pool sessions, before we even touch the water, I'm briefing for about an hour, hour and a half. And that's just going over the basics, like stuff they went over in their e-learning, decompression theory, and why that's important for like your BCD, everything like that, barotraumas and all that good stuff.
So even on your easiest one, you're still spending half an hour to review.
Yeah.
It's funny, I consult with a lot of different practices, and it's amazing how hard it is for offices, and we struggle with this sometimes too, just to meet for 5 minutes at the beginning of the day to plan the day. And here you are for just a tour, easy deal, planning at least half an hour.
Yeah.
And then before you get into a pool, and we should all be able to swim to the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
Right. At least we were picking up dive sticks or playing Marco Polos as kids. Right? There's an hour and a half before we touch the water. Yeah. When that's pretty darn safe.
Yeah. Well, if you brief a lot before you go in, and this is something I picked up from one of my instructors, if you brief before you go in, you don't have to talk as much when you go in. And so you brief everything that could possibly happen. You brief all the hand signals they might need, and then when you get into the water, they should be able to perform everything.
So your prep time is helpful. It's that
absolutely
right. Measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
Type of. I'm trying to remember. I think it was one of the. Who'd had the Stephen Covey, the Habits of Highly Successful People. I don't know if it's measure twice, cut once, but whoever's listening to this right now, you're going to laugh at me because you're yelling it and screaming it at the radio, telling me what it is. But that being prepared ahead of time and sharpen the saw, I believe is what Stephen Covey calls it.
I've heard of that one.
Yep. Just yeah. Well, your dad's a contractor. You should know the measure twice, cut once. Right? No, I think that's important, and it certainly is helpful. It's just it's hard because the eagerness just to jump in the water or just to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite things is seeing them breathe underwater for the first time, or like breathe underwater in the ocean for the first time. It's such a unique experience that not a lot of people get to experience because actually the dive industry is very small compared to the world.
Really?
Yeah, so it's amazing. It's one of my favorite things for them to see and experience. So I'm always like, I want to get you in the water as fast as possible. I want to see you breathe underwater. And
so when you say you see them breathe underwater, what are you seeing them do? What's the experience for you?
So I've had two different types of experiences. So the first one, we actually had to cancel that certification because it was a couple and they actually couldn't. The guy felt like he wasn't breathing underwater, and we tested all his gear ourselves, and he's breathing. He's fine. He's above the water. He's fine. Everything like that. We even tweaked the regulator so it gave him a little more of an airflow underwater, and he just couldn't do it. So there's experiences like that where they don't like the fact of breathing underwater, and that's why we start in pools. Is
that a mental block that they have? Is it
I believe so. Okay. It's a weird experience. It really is. Breathing underwater is different. And then I've seen ones where they're like,
that was profound, by the way. Breathing underwater is different.
It is.
That should be a shirt.
It should. We're different. We breathe underwater.
We breathe underwater. That's very cool. And that's tough. We see that in our world too, where the either treatment or even something as simple as a prescription seems to work in the exam room, but then they get the glasses or contacts and they go out and it doesn't translate the way that we think it should.
Yeah.
and trying to adjust. So not being able to breathe underwater,
Yeah.
That's got to be scary for them.
Yeah. Because it's a mental block. So they do have air. They are breathing. We're watching them breathe. Deep breaths, full breaths. But they feel like they're not getting anything. And it's like, okay, if you can't do it in 2 feet, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to call it here because you can't go out in the ocean like this.
No, I would think not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although on the flip side, ever since we were kids, we were taught to hold our breath when we got in the water.
Oh yeah.
So now you're teaching us to do something that's completely unnatural.
Yes, and actually, that's one of our skills. Is that whenever we do like a recovery where we're like purging or we're doing the exhalation method, one of our big rules is that you should never hold your breath. And so anytime the regulator's out of your mouth, you're always blowing bubbles.
Oh, okay.
Because that's one of the big things. You never want to stop holding your breath because you can get a biotrauma, and it's actually more risky in like shallow waters. People always think that, oh, you'll get them in the deeper waters, but no, that change really happens in the shallow waters, and that's why we have our safety stop at 15 feet.
That's interesting. And I've got a bunch of friends being in San Diego that are retired team guys, Navy SEAL guys, and they've all said, the scariest part is that through training is the pool swims where they've got to go back and forth without getting any air. It's all the shallow water blackouts that they call it because they.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Is it because you think you're safe because you're so close to the surface? Is it because there's less pressure on you? Why does it happen there?
So it's big in like free diving. They have the shallow water blackouts, and because when you take that breath and then you go down, it's gonna like everything contracts with the pressure, and so your lungs are getting smaller. So you actually have more air in your lungs necessarily, and then as you go up, your lungs are going to expand, and you actually won't have enough air in your lungs, enough oxygen to be able to hold consciousness. And so that's when you have that shallow water blackouts, and that's why they have a lot of safety divers, because you will have shallow water blackouts once in a while.
Yeah, that's got to be scary.
Yeah.
So interesting. So when it does work well and they are able to go underwater and breathe, what does that look like?
Just astonishment. They just get down there like, whoa, because as soon as you get down, like one of my favorite things about diving is that the world's chaotic, and you always hear like everything going on, and then as soon as you get underwater, it's just silence, and all you hear is and then you hear the ocean and the water, and
that's cool.
It's beautiful. You'll hear like sound travels faster in the ocean, and so that's why like you can't tell where the sound's coming from. Sometimes it feels like it's right over your head, and so you'll hear everything, and it's just like water and air, and it's beautiful.
That's cool. Yeah. We need to go diving. You need to teach me. That's what I love about surfing is I can leave my phone and my laptop and everything behind.
Oh yeah. My dad wants to get certified, so
does he?
You guys can go together.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I got to work on the ear thing though. I've got the ear issues, so being able to purge or balance the ears, equalize is always a challenge, but I'm sure you can teach me.
Yeah, so I actually have my left ear canal is closing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's swelling from how much I dive. And so I actually use eardrops now, just swimmer eardrops every time I swim, even in the pool now. I use them, but we just use the Valsalva maneuver where you just plug your nose and you lightly blow out, and then if you need to, we just ascend a little bit and try again, and then go down. And usually after a few tries, I can get mine if it's acting up. But it's been good the past few dives. So
cool.
Yeah.
So that brings up another interesting question. Somebody new to diving, and they say, I can't do it. Right? I've got a fear of XYZ. I've got a fear of going underwater. I've got an ear thing. How many of those are true? They can't do it, and how often is it just a mental block that you help them work through?
I've only had mental blocks because if they're going to actually start the course, they have to be medically cleared.
Okay.
So we go through a list of medical evaluation forms, and then they sign it. And then if anything is marked yes with an asterisk, they have to get again medically cleared by a professional.
Yep.
So just for them to start the course, they have to be cleared.
Yep.
And so anyone I get, it's usually just a mental block. And sometimes you can work through it, sometimes you can't. But
all mental blocks.
Yeah, we take a little extra time in the pool, and usually after that they're like, okay, I got this. And I'm like, see, you've got it. And then of course in shallower pools, it's a little harder to get your buoyancy correct and everything. I'm like, trust me, once you get out to the ocean, you can do it in here, once you get onto the ocean where you're a little more buoyant and you have a different saltwater density, like it's going to be easier. You have more room. Like
that makes sense.
Yeah.
We get that frequently. Usually it's mostly with contact. You know, I could never wear them. I could never put something on my eye. I could never do anything. But the minute they have that experience, it wasn't what they perceived it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. And so then it opens things up.
I did that with eye drops. I used to not be able to do them, but then I actually got I got a little bump on my eye.
Little sty, yeah.
Yeah, from the UV rays, and so they were like, they're like, okay, we're gonna put some drops in your eyes. You have to do this twice a day, both bottles. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And they're like, okay, we'll try it. We'll show you. So they actually did the thing where you close your eye, you put it right here, and then you blink. And I was like, oh, this is easy. And now I can just go, boop, just put it in.
I like it. So what did you say, styles and standards, right?
Yeah.
It's had to get in there.
That's a good style. It was great. I was like, okay, this is like taking a pill with a straw.
I like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So so this has been fun. So so as a 22-year-old, you've done quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
And probably not the traditional way, right? It's because when I was 22, I was still, studying Shakespeare and taking, biology classes and being a nerd in the chem labs at San Diego State. And your 22-year-old life is much more exciting than mine was. Discovering the impact of LifeMeter this year has been truly transformative for motivating my patients with macular degeneration to embrace carotenoid supplements. With this non-invasive device, we can now quantitatively show that supplements are working. LifeMeter assesses carotenoid concentration in the skin, reflecting fruit and vegetable intake, and indicating levels in other vital tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, LifeMeter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness have been validated in 2,000 subjects of varying background. What's more, it offers the flexibility to prescribe the best-suited products for each patient. My patients love knowing their numbers and witnessing improvements in as little as a month. Better yet, compliance with carotenoid supplements has surged, doubling our sales of MacuHealth since the LifeMeter's implementation. As doctors of optometry, we cannot do what we do without our team. And Para-Optometrics are allied health professionals who assist us in providing the highest level of vision care to our patients. We at iCode Education want to support you and your team in the Para-Optometric certification process, which is why not only do we have resources available, training resources available for your team to help prepare them for the test, but we also have a discount code specifically for the Aaron Werner podcast listeners, which gives you $100 off for 12 months. So you can use the code AWP 2024, that's AWP 2024, to get $100 off for a 12 months code. We'll put the link in the show notes, but you can visit iCodeEducation.com and search for para-optometric training to see what those courses are like.
Yeah, so I have a meeting at the end of this month, actually, with the Navy SEAL Foundation.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my grandpa. He was actually the Navy SEAL at the time that tested all the watches, and this was the only watch that passed their exam. And so it's a very extensive exam. He remembers. I remember him telling me about how he froze it. He would hit it with things. He would put it at certain depths and compression chambers and everything. And this was the only one that lasted. And so, yeah, I'm hoping, because they don't have a woman face to it, so I'm hoping to be that for diving, and I also do other stuff. So, yeah,
very exciting. Cool. I'm sure that he put it through all sorts of. Knowing your family, I haven't met him, but knowing your family and knowing the mentality of a lot of my retired SEAL friends.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to pass it. He was trying to break it.
He was trying to break it, and it passed. And so now it's their new, they actually have a Navy SEAL line. And so that's where all my watches are from, is the Navy SEAL line.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
How important is it now? It's, beautiful watches. When you're diving, when you're doing your other, crazy trying to kill yourself activities that your mom doesn't want to know about, right? How important is it to have the right equipment?
It's very important. I tell people the first thing you want to get is your computer and your watches and everything, because you want to have your gear that's going to keep your body safe. Your watch is always going to show your nitrox levels throughout your whole entire dives, throughout weeks of service intervals and everything like that. And so it's really important that I have these watches, actually, because for my training, I have to time certain activities that they do underwater. And if I don't time it, then they don't pass.
Yep.
And so I have to have a watch that works. And then if we do like night dives or something like that, I want to know what time it is. And these are guaranteed to glow for, I believe, 25 plus years.
It's a long time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's easy to cut corners on certain things.
Yes.
And there's probably certain things that are okay.
Yeah.
I don't say cut corners, but different levels of quality. But
used gear is fine sometimes. You just have to get it serviced.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yep. Right. But having the right gear is important. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, well, I doubt we'll have any pull with the company, but if there's anything we can do, having somebody, a strong young female like yourself is super cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
And just don't do any of the crazy. Just don't fail in any of the crazy kill yourself activities that you do. No, keep doing them. And I think you're a crazy rock climber, and I know you guys were out snowboarding, and I believe your dad was saying that you were launching yourself off cliffs.
That was not me.
That was not you?
No.
So but no, very cool. I appreciate the insights into your world and training, and looking at the parallels has been really fun.
Yeah, that's.
We're really excited to invite you to join the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media's first live book club, where we review the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Doctors Brianna Rue, Kyle Clutie, and myself are super excited to share our thoughts with you. We want you to join, share your thoughts with us, ask questions, all live on Wednesday, February 21st at 4 p.m. Central Time. In the show notes of this episode, there's a link to order the book. There's also a link to join our book club live on Wednesday, February 21st at 4 p.m. Central. Look forward to seeing you there.